Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be presenting my analysis called the Ideological State Apparatus on Anarres. So this is going to be an analysis on a book called The Dispossessed, written by Ursula K. Le Guin in 1974. Just a quick uh, few notes about this book. I think it's a pretty rare type of novel because it really goes into details about anarchism and its contrast with capitalism, and I find to be pretty accurate based on the principles of anarchism. I'm an anarchist myself, so um, I hold this book very close to my heart because I do envision a society much like how it's written in the book, which is it happens in the a moon called Anarres, and the Anaristi, which are the people of Anarres, they follow uh, a specific flavor of anarchism called Odonianism, which was founded by but I forget the first name of their founder, but their last name is Odo, and the story takes place 200 years after the people of Anaris moved from the sister planet Uros, which is capitalist, into Anaris. So. It just covers Shivek, the main character. He's a physicist, and he comes up with this new theory of physics called simultaneity theory, um, and it really challenges the dominant theory that is accepted in Anar's, which is called spontaneity theory. So he gets into some tuffles with the other scientists of Anar's about his theory, and it kind of really reveals a lot of contradictions and issues within a society that claims and truly believes to be um, anti-hierarchical and based on the principles of mutual aid and self-determination. So my analytical tool is the ideological state apparatus. This was a concept that Louis Althusser came up with. He is a French Marxist philosopher. And what the ideological state apparatus is pretty much kind of like how we internalize uh, uh, the validation of the state as an entity um, that governs us, that controls us. We accept and internalize those things, and we implement that validation of the state within our schools and family and religion and media. Whereas um, the repressive state apparatus is much more overt and much more directly violent in their implementation of the validation of the state, which would happen through like police and army, courts, prisons, stuff like that, which Anarres does not have any of the repressive state apparatus, but it definitely does have the ideological state apparatus, which is my main argument. It's that despite them believing themselves to be anarchists, and in a lot of ways they are, they still failed to eliminate the ideological state apparatus because hierarchy and certain forms of power starts creeping back into their society, and they are not prepared to deal with that issue. And I'm gonna go in more into it about it. Okay, so the first issue with Anaris is the fact that it's a pretty isolationist place. It's so they do have very, very limited trade with Uras. They do accept like refined uh like technology, like they so they ship like raw resources, um, like mercury and metals and stuff like that, and then they import like machinery and stuff like that from Uras. But that's literally all that they do. That's the only kind of relationship they have with Uras. None of the Urasti people are allowed to go into Anarres, and while the Anaristi technically can go to Uras, they are not allowed back. Like there's no one really stopping them from coming back, but like there's a lot of social pressure. There's a lot of stigma into like involving yourself with anything that has to do with Uras. And so, because of this, they have a wall surrounding their spaceports. And I like to bring up a quote from the book about the wall. It says, "The wall enclosed Anarres. The whole planet was inside it, a great prison camp cut off from other worlds and other men in quarantine." And so, I really like how um, Ursula K. Le Guin used the word quarantine here because it paints the Urasti people as if they were some kind of plague, some kind of virus, something to like, if you were to associate with them, you are going to be corrupted by them. And that's a very weird thing for an anarchist society to kind of like to do because you know, if your way of living is good, then you shouldn't be worried about it being corrupted. If it's something that people will like, if it's something that leads to good outcomes and it truly is liberatory, for all people, then there's no reason why you would fear uh, a a more authoritarian form of living to corrupt the your own people. Like if you're free, you enjoy being free. Why would you want to imprison and trap yourself or enslave yourself again? Um, so that's I found that really interesting. Um, and so yeah, Anaris, they isolate itself from the rest of humanity. And then the wall around the spaceport symbolizes both protection and imprisonment. Uh, their revolution becomes quite inward looking and loses solidarity with the oppressed people on Uras. It's like, um, they lock themselves in and they protect themselves from, I guess, any outside influence, but then again they limit their own freedom by not associating themselves with people outside of their own society. So in the book, one of my favorite quotes is, "To lock out, to lock in, the same act." And that really speaks to me because it's true to me. Like, yeah, you can lock yourself inside your own house and say that everyone in the house has the right to eat pancakes, but if you don't believe that your neighbors also have the right to eat pancakes, then um, do you really are you really that free? Are you really upholding the principles of like of liberation? And also in the real world, we see that isolationism generally does not produce good outcomes. With the America First movement, seeing how it's white supremacist and outright, you know, just based on bigotry. And we see North Korea, which is a very desolate place, whom its people suffer from just like total domination from their own government. It's not good. Isolationism is just not good, and it's not compatible with a free society. The next issue is ideological rigidity. So Louis Althusser talks about this in his own book, and this quote pretty much. kind of means that um, we can't be treating ideology as a religion. We have to treat it as a science. We need to always be able to question it, and be able to modify it if needed. The second it becomes rigid, it becomes dogma. It becomes kind of like a religion, And if it becomes rigid, then we can't advance. We can't solve new issues. Um, so yeah, that's a big issue. That's a big issue for any anarchist society to become rigid because anarchists from the beginning of anarchism in the real world have always believed that the revolution is not a single thing that happens and it's over with, but it is continuous. It is constant. It never ends. There's always something to do better. There's always things to figure out. So, and also in the book, Odo herself meant for her philosophy to be kind of um, like malleable, like flexible, always fluid. And that's not at all how um, they interpret it by the time that Shivek is alive. So, this reminds me a lot of how Marxist Leninism is treated more like a dogma, like a religion, than it is treated uh like a analytical tool to um criticize capitalism, I've spoken with many Marxist Leninists, and yeah, it's like a lot of them, they just act like um Lenin or Stalin or whoever, Mao could do no wrong. They are infallible. And their methods of using state power was like always justified in some way. So a lot of ways it's like religion, it's like you can't it's unfalsifiable, right? So if you believe that you can do no wrong, then you can't advance. Another issue is social conformity. Uh, this is a big one because this is kind of like the bread and butter of power in Anarres. Rather than they like using literal violence to like putting a gun on your head to make you do things. Um, what happens instead is you get pressured into conforming to the rest of society. Um, so the people on Anaris, they really fear social judgment more than anything else. So shame, reputation, and fear of exclusion encourage their obedience, and conformity becomes a hidden form of control. Um, so another powerful quote in the book is, "We've made laws of conventional behavior, built walls around ourselves, and we can't see them because they're a part of our thinking." And this is where this is my strongest evidence for the existence of the ideological state apparatus in Anarres, because this is kind of like how it manifests itself the most. It's the way that we think. We start policing each other, we start limiting each other. And like we are like social pressure is very powerful in us. We're social creatures, so it really is it can be an overwhelming form of force and control and authority even, especially given the example of how Shivek had to deal with Sabu, who was like a publisher, and he was the gatekeeper for anything that was published in Anarres. He tried to he wanted to publish his theory of simultaneity, but Sabu didn't want to because it went against like it was like the opposite of the theory of spontaneity, and so and Shivek knew that it would be a waste of time to even try to publish something that wasn't approved by Sabu. So Sabu, kind of like acts like he doesn't have any power, but Shivek says, "Hey, look, you're the publisher. Like, you know that no one's. I'm not gonna waste my time not getting your approval first because no one's gonna wanna even look at my theory or even listen to me if you're not okay with it first." So he kind of exposed that like hidden hierarchy, right? And then the final piece of evidence that I have for my argument is that the existing federations that are used to coordinate in Anarres, they become kind of like these institutions with like creeping authority. At first, like so, I'm talking about the PDC and in DivLab. The PDC is kind of like the general federation that controls like where resources are headed to, they coordinate that. And the DivLab stands for Division of Labor, and what they do is they coordinate who is going to work and what kind of job postings you're going to do. And it's voluntary. Like you go there and you choose what jobs you want to work every 10 days. They're rotating jobs. But because there was this like big drought, um, these institutions became much more authoritarian in the way that they no longer um, made it voluntary for people to choose their jobs. They just kind of signed their jobs to people, and whoever didn't like it would be like ostracized or they would be like shunned by the rest of the society, because again, that social conformity was really strong in Anars. And we see that a lot, well, in the real world too. Like it's like we're shamed when we don't pay our taxes, for better or for worse. Like um, we are shamed for not having a driver's license or registering our cars. Yes, there is the overt control from the repressive state apparatus, but there's also that, social pressure from the ideological state apparatus for us to like follow the law, right? And it's not that much different in Anarres, even though there is no law there. So my conclusions is that I don't think the novel is a critique of anarchism itself. It's more a kind of a warning, right? Like that if we are to um, promote anarchism and um, uh, construct this uh, revolution based on the liberation of all people, and the elimination of hierarchy. We it's not enough to eliminate the repressive state apparatus, but we also have to address the ideological state apparatus, which would be much harder to do, but just as important as well. And that liberation is not a finished project. Like this is like uh, a core belief, a core principle of anarchism. It's that revolution must remain ongoing, flexible, and self-critical. It freedom requires space for dissent, experimentation, and change. We must always be able to question ourselves so that we can advance and do better and progress. And that's it. Thank you for listening.